Hi, everyone. I'm Corey Wilson. Thank you for joining me for this pre-recorded session. I'm excited to share my experiences with volunteerism and hope that you will take away valuable insights that you can apply in your own volunteer career. First, a brief introduction of myself. I've lived in New Hampshire for 32 years and have volunteered in some capacity ongoing for that time. I'm a community volunteer. I work with schools, sports, and other organizations and have been since I was a child. In addition to working with existing opportunities, I've created new opportunities in which I volunteered and caused others to do so as well. As a college professor for 9 years, I also had the privilege of teaching and showing students the value of volunteering, which I now look forward to sharing with you. In this session, I'll outline some general and specific information and highlight with examples. Some of this will apply more or less, depending on your situation and the organization you're volunteering with. We'll look at several things. Why do you volunteer or want to? What do you expect to get from the experience? What does the organization you're volunteering for expect and need from you? What is your role in ensuring that your mutual needs are met? I'll share possible benefits and pitfalls, as well as offer a couple of opportunities to do simple exercises to help you in your own quest for lifelong volunteering opportunities. I encourage you to make notes and complete the exercises on your own. To that end, you might want to open up a Word document or grab a notepad and pencil and take some notes as we go along. Today, I'll define what a volunteer is, share why you might want to volunteer, and provide an overview of what you and the organization might hope to get from your volunteer experience. First, what is a volunteer? In simple terms, a volunteer is someone who chooses to provide a service and is not paid. However, while not a paid employee or contractor, volunteers will be required to follow organization policies and all municipal laws. You may have preconceived notions about what a volunteer is, what they do, how they're different from employees, and more. These may or may not be accurate. Take a minute to think about the following and make some notes for yourself. Have you ever been a volunteer before? What was your experience with that? When you hear the word volunteer, what do you think of? What do you think the differences are between a volunteer and an employee beyond the employee getting paid? Write whatever you want and however you want to word it, because this is for you. And you can pause the video and make notes here or go back at any time. Some organizations consist solely of volunteers. Others, while run by paid employees or contractors, need volunteers to fill certain roles either on an occasional or ongoing basis. Volunteer opportunities can be short-term, one-off, short duration, or long-term, ongoing, depending on the organization's needs. Most nonprofit organizations and service clubs do not bring in enough funding to pay salaries and stipends for every job they need to fill. Their model is to be mostly or all volunteer-led. Kiwanis Lions and Rotary are examples of international organizations that function at the local level. At the local level, volunteers provide services to the community as well as run the behind-the-scenes management of the organization, while at the national level, there's paid staff. Girl Scouts and Boy Scouts are similarly modeled. Sometimes individuals are contracted to do very specific work for the organization. This is true of the New Hampshire Senior Games. While there are employees at the national level, the entirety of the statewide sport tournament is run by a volunteer board of directors and sport coordinators, and the only paid person is a part-time marketing consultant. Other organizations, such as police athletic leagues or AmeriCorps Vista programs, might utilize volunteers, but they have a small paid staff to run the daily workings of the local organization. Most smaller grassroots organizations are run completely by volunteers. An example of this might be your town's youth recreation sports program, where the board of directors, coaches, and often officials are volunteers. The bottom line is volunteers enable an organization to do more than they could without volunteers. Because of this, each organization has unique needs that result in short or long-term opportunities. These opportunities improve the value of what the organization offers, increase the reach in their community, provide extended opportunities for fundraising, and it is important that volunteers understand the structure or model of the organization and their role in it. The specific benefits of why someone volunteers may depend on the organization or that person's needs, but volunteers generally enjoy a variety of personal and professional benefits. Take a minute now to think about your why you volunteer or why you want to volunteer. What do you want to get from the experience? Again, you can pause this video and make some notes here, or you can come back to this. People volunteer for some or all of the following reasons, and maybe more. Give back to your community. Share your knowledge and expertise with others. Learn new skills. Connect with others with shared interests. Make new friends and network for personal and professional benefits. Improve your communication and human interaction skills. Other benefits include joining in meetings, food, organization gear and swag, and even parties and other forms of recognition for volunteers. A volunteer position may lead to a paid position with the organization. Volunteers sometimes go on to fill paid positions that open up, or even help the organization create new positions that the volunteer can then fill. An example of this is when an AmeriCorps Vista volunteer with a local organization proved the value of her work she was doing to the extent that she and the executive director developed a proposal for her volunteer role to become a full-time paid position. They presented this to the board of directors, who voted in favor and found a funding source. She was then hired to this new position, continuing the work she had done during her volunteer period, but now as a paid employee. I myself have had multiple experiences as a volunteer. One in particular, really great experience, was 11 years ago at the then Bank of America Champions Tournament. I worked 7 days, all day and into the evening, to help implement the PGA Senior Golf Tournament. I was able to put classroom knowledge into action and worked on valuable skills to use toward my future career in sport management. I networked with volunteers, members of the PGA organization, and both professional and amateur golfers. I learned a lot about how sport events are run, golf in particular, and how to manage the inevitable challenges that arise. And I was empowered to find and implement solutions when needed. One of the things this tournament did well was to support and recognize volunteers. They had a tent for us to stop in any time we weren't on shift. We could rest, have snacks and beverages, socialize, and then at the end of the tournament, they gave us a party where we all gathered and enjoyed each other's company with food and music. And bonus, we got lots of swag from the event. Another example is my involvement with a community service organization I am no longer a part of, specifically because of the way I was treated as a volunteer. The organization is run entirely by volunteers for the benefit of the community. I brought to this organization a significant amount of experience and ideas, having been with the organization elsewhere. While I did not expect to always get my way or have my ideas used, I was consistently made to feel by certain members that my age and gender diminished the value of what I could share. In addition, there was little support when certain issues arose. The individuals with whom there were challenges were the leaders and viewed by others as all-knowing. While I appreciated the great work they did and wanted to help, the environment was not positive, supported, or empowering, and I did not feel valued for being anything more than a workhorse. Attempts to correct this were not successful. And so after much deliberation, I made the choice to take my time, talents, and passion elsewhere. Have you ever had an experience where you could bring value to the situation, but for some reason your input was not considered? Conversely, have you ever been trusted and tasked with a directive when you knew you had the qualities or information needed to be successful and were empowered to move forward accordingly? How did either or both of these situations make you feel? It's important to find a volunteer opportunity that's a fit for you and where you are a fit for the organization. The ideal volunteer situation is one in which both the volunteer and the organization benefit. While not uncommon for the balance of the relationship to fluctuate at times, it is important that neither is being taken advantage of. If it becomes too lopsided for too long, there's a need to evaluate and determine if it can be adjusted for mutual benefit. If it can, a plan should be put in place. If not, it may be time for the volunteer to move on. Much like a paid employee situation, the key is finding a volunteer opportunity that is a fit for both parties. But what do we mean when we say fit? Ask yourself some questions. Does the organization's culture and core value match yours? How do you respond to your supervisor's management style? Do the tasks satisfy what you're looking to experience here? Have you met others you might be working with? Can you see yourself doing the work? Do you have the skills needed, or can you learn them? And does your gut tell you that this is a place for you? If it seems like there's a fit, it might be worth committing to this, at least on a trial basis. Once you're committed, you need to continue to ensure fit. This comes by way of mutual satisfaction. Is the organization getting what they need from you? And are you getting what you need from the volunteer experience? If the answer to both is yes, you can choose to continue with the opportunity. However, sometimes it's not a fit, and you don't always know that until you're entrenched in the work. Maybe it's not what you expected, or they're having you do things you were not brought on to do, and you're struggling with that. Maybe they're not providing support. It could be a list of reasons. Short-term volunteer opportunities have less significant implications in that the relationship will end soon, but you still need to do the job if you've committed to it. Longer-term projects or commitments may be different. When you or the organization determine there's not a fit, it's important to discuss this. Perhaps there are strategies to improve the situation. That's another workshop session entirely. But if there aren't, or you try them and things are still not working, it may be it's not a fit for you and the organization can choose to part ways. This leaves you free to find another opportunity that might be a fit. And that process, the process of how to handle a potential separation, is also topic for another session. What does it mean to be just a volunteer, though? On the one hand, you're not an employee, you're not paid, which might lead you to think you do not have as much responsibility, shouldn't be held accountable, shouldn't be part of anything or do anything more than what's required of you in your role. On the other hand, you might ask yourself if, as a volunteer, the organization values you as much as a paid employee. Do they appreciate what you bring to the role? Experience, knowledge, various transferable skills. If you see room for improvement or new idea implementation, is there room to speak up? Keep in mind that while you may not be getting paid for this work, once you commit to it, you cannot use being just a volunteer as an excuse for not getting things done, and being a volunteer does not exempt you from basic rules of business. Act professionally, show up on time, stay as long as required or longer. Follow internal policies and procedures and external laws and regulations. Support your organization and speak positively of them with others. Volunteers must still be responsible and held accountable. Organizations must provide the training and appropriate environment and supervision in which volunteers can do their work, but also support and encourage them. They need to create an environment in which volunteers can do all these things. Also, you may be just a volunteer, but given the opportunity, you might aspire to do more and even step into more leadership opportunities to demonstrate your value. You will continue to gain valuable experience and the situation or event can run more smoothly. What should you expect from the organization in terms of helping you integrate seamlessly into the organization and your role? Volunteer training, onboarding, or orientation are various words for similar concepts. Before committing to a position, you should have a clear understanding of what the role entails, and this should be further explained and explored once you and the organization agree you will be a volunteer. At that time, the organization should make it clear what is expected through some sort of training. This can be one-time onboarding or ongoing training opportunities depending on the nature of the organization. Training should include reviewing core values, providing clear expectations and information both orally and in writing through a handbook, learning who the other staff are and what their roles are, knowing what tasks you are expected to do, knowing what role you're expected to play. Are you expected to interact with others, provide reports, attend meetings, participate, or just observe? And other protocols, policies, and procedures might include dress code, confidentiality. What can you do or not do without permission? Do you bring your own meals? What are the hours, breaks, and unexpected extra time and tasks that might occur? You should also be told where things are so you don't always have to ask people for the basics. And you should be told what happens if you can't come in. Who do you contact? If you're volunteering at a one-day or weekend-long event, there might be a brief training at the start of your shift that covers all of this. If you are an ongoing volunteer, there'll probably be an initial orientation, followed by additional training as needed on a periodic basis. Remember, while you may not be paid, people are counting on you. So once you commit, you need to follow through on this commitment. When volunteers do not show up or complete a task as needed, it sets the organization back and someone still has to do that task. When you identify an opportunity to contribute, approach your supervisor with a basic plan or proposal. Do some legwork before stating something can or should change. They might ask you to develop this further and bring it back to them, or even present to a larger group. You should be treated as the contributor you are. You're not just a volunteer. You have a lot to offer. You should be encouraged to offer input and ideas, and those should be treated the same as if they came from a paid staff member. Empowering volunteers and giving them flexible parameters may be the best thing an organization can do. If you find this is not being offered, it's in your best interest to ask. The worst that can happen is they say no, and then you decide if you want to convince them otherwise, or if this is a failing that demonstrates how the organization feels about you. In this case, you may want to reevaluate whether this is the right place for you. And to wrap things up, just some reminders. Know your why. Why do you want to volunteer, and what do you want to get from this experience? Learn about the organization and how they use volunteers. Once you accept the position, demonstrate your commitment and follow through. Demonstrate a positive attitude and strong work ethic, and be willing to learn as well as share. And remember, they accepted you to volunteer because they believe you have something to add of value to their organization. Thank you for joining me. And I hope that you might join me for either or both of the question and answer sessions. You can register for those at the same link you registered for this. And if you have any questions, you're welcome to email me directly at the email listed below. I hope I'll see you at one of those question and answer sessions. And thank you again.